October 1988. A soundstage lit like a back alley. A man in a white suit and fedora stops mid-step, plants his feet, and then tilts his entire body forward, 45 degrees, further than gravity should ever allow, and holds it there like the world had simply forgotten how to pull him down. The crowd on set gasps before the cameras even finish rolling. And when Smooth Criminal hits television screens a few months later, the entire planet asks the exact same question at the exact same time. How is that humanly possible? For over 3 decades, people have insisted it wasn't. That Michael Jackson broke the laws of physics on pure willpower and ankle strength. There's only one problem with that story. He didn't defy gravity. He beat it with an idea nobody else had thought to patent yet. So if Michael Jackson didn't actually lean past the point of no return using his own muscles, how did he pull it off on stage, night after night, in front of thousands of people? Who built the machine that made it possible? And here's the real question. Why does the world still talk about it like it was a secret only his body knew? Stick around, because the answer involves a shoe, a nail, and a patent number you can still look up today. And if you like the stories behind the legends, hit subscribe for more. Now, let's get into it. To understand what Michael actually pulled off, you first have to understand what the human ankle can and cannot do. And the honest answer is that no ankle, no matter how strong, can hold a rigid 45-degree forward lean from a standing position without either falling on your face or having something anchoring you from behind. Dancers had experimented with the illusion for years before Smooth Criminal. In stage productions and music videos throughout the 1970s and 80s, choreographers used hidden wires, harnesses bolted into the floor, or camera tricks where the entire set was tilted sideways and filmed from an angle so a normal lean looked impossible. The lean itself, as a visual idea, wasn't new. Magicians had been faking gravity-defying poses for a century. Optical illusionists built entire acts around tilted rooms. So the concept of looking like you're defying gravity was already old news by the time Michael got involved. What nobody had done yet was make that illusion touring-proof, repeatable, safe, and doable live, 8 shows a week without a single visible wire. Even outside of dance, the illusion of leaning past your own balance point has a much older history than most fans realize. Circus performers in the early 1900s used weighted boots and hidden counterbalances to fake impossible poses under the big top. Film directors in the silent era tilted entire rooms and bolted furniture to the walls so actors could appear to defy gravity while the camera itself sat sideways, a trick borrowed decades later by movies like Royal Wedding, where Fred Astaire seemed to dance up a wall and across the ceiling using a rotating room built around a fixed camera. So long before Michael ever stepped into a fedora, the idea of faking a broken relationship with gravity was already a well-worn tool in the entertainer's toolbox. What none of those earlier tricks solved was the live, close-up, no rotating set, no hidden camera version. A trick you could do on an open stage in front of an audience, standing close enough to see your actual feet without a single visible wire holding you up. That gap, the gap between a filmed illusion and a live one, is exactly what Michael and his team set out to close. That part is where Michael comes in, just not the way most people think. The version of the lean that Michael performed on stage didn't come from a choreographer's notebook. It came from an engineer's workshop. It came from a patent filed under his own name, alongside 2 other men most fans have never heard of. Through the late 1980s, Michael had grown obsessed with the idea of building illusions that couldn't be explained by the audience. No wires visible, no trick camera angle, just impossible movement happening 3 feet in front of a live crowd. Out of that obsession came the 2 men who are arguably the most important names in this entire story: costume designer Michael Bush and special effects designer Dennis Tompkins. Bush and Tompkins had worked with Michael for years on tour costuming and knew exactly how his body moved on stage. But the real breakthrough came when the team brought in a mechanical solution rather than a muscular one. In 1992, 4 years after Smooth Criminal first shocked the world, Michael Jackson, Michael Bush, and Dennis Tompkins were granted United States patent number 5S2-5452 for what the filing literally calls a method and means for creating anti-gravity illusion. Sit with that for a second. The move the world assumed was raw human strength was, in the eyes of the US government, an invention with a patent number, drawings, and a filing date. So here's the big question. If it wasn't ankle strength, what was actually holding him up? The honest answer: a slot, a peg, and a very specific pair of shoes. And this is where it gets specific. The patent describes a special shoe with a slot cut into the heel. That slot was designed to hook onto a peg, a metal hitch that rose up out of the stage floor at the exact moment the lean happened. Michael's foot would slide forward, the heel would catch the peg, and that single point of contact became an anchor strong enough to let his entire upper body tilt forward at an angle no unassisted human being could hold. The trick only worked at one specific spot on the stage, which is why, if you watch old Smooth Criminal footage closely, the lean always happens at almost the same mark every single time. That wasn't choreography for the sake of style. That was choreography built entirely around where the hardware was hidden beneath the floor. According to people who worked on Michael's touring crew during the Dangerous World Tour, stagehands had to install and test that peg mechanism before every single show, checking the tension, checking the alignment, because if the peg rose even a few inches off mark, the entire illusion could fail live in front of a paying audience, or worse, injure him. It wasn't a one-time gag. It was a piece of custom stage engineering rebuilt and recalibrated in city after city, tour after tour, for years. And it didn't stop at the shoe. Bush and Tompkins reportedly went through dozens of prototypes before landing on a heel and slot design rigid enough to hold body weight, but light enough that Michael could still dance normally in the same shoes for the rest of the number. Some accounts from crew members even describe early versions of the design snapping under pressure during rehearsal, forcing the team back to the drawing board more than once before the mechanism was considered safe enough for a live arena. Every single one of those failures happened out of sight, in a workshop or a rehearsal hall, long before a single paying fan ever saw the trick land cleanly on stage. So the real picture was never one man defying physics through sheer discipline. It was a team, an engineer thinking through leverage and torque, a costume designer building a shoe around a mechanical secret, and Michael himself timing a live performance around a peg he couldn't even see, trusting that it would rise from the floor at exactly the right half second. Michael Jackson didn't defy gravity. He did something most performers never even attempt. He turned a stage trick into a patented piece of technology and then made his own body the delivery method. Now the part that actually matters. If the real secret was a peg in the floor and a slotted heel, why is it that when you picture the anti-gravity lean, you don't picture a patent document or a stagehand kneeling under a riser? You picture Michael Jackson in a fedora, tilted impossibly forward. And the answer is because of what he did with the illusion once he had it. Anyone with access to the same shoe and the same peg could have leaned forward on a stage. Only one performer built an entire character, an entire mood, and an entire moment in music history around that single gesture. Watch the way he sells it in the video and on tour. The stillness right before the lean, the slow count where the audience realizes something wrong is about to happen, and then the hold, long enough that people in the crowd audibly gasp because their brain is telling them a human body cannot do that. One dance critic described the moment as the instant Smooth Criminal stopped being a song and became a magic trick performed in front of thousands of witnesses. Choreographers who studied the routine have pointed out that Michael didn't just lean, he controlled the exact speed of the fall and the exact speed of the recovery, treating a piece of stage hardware like it was just another muscle in his own body. In other words, Michael didn't just use an invention, he rehearsed it, mastered its timing down to a fraction of a second, and performed it with a level of control that made an obviously mechanical trick feel like a supernatural one. He also did something clever with the mystery itself. For years, Michael refused to explain how the lean worked, letting audiences believe it might genuinely be some form of otherworldly strength or training. He let the illusion breathe as a legend long after the patent had already been filed and was sitting in public record for anyone to search. That's the difference between owning a trick and owning a mystery. Michael Jackson did both at once, and arguably that's the harder thing to pull off. So here's where we land. The anti-gravity lean is not a story about one man's body beating physics. It belongs to a patent office, to a costume designer with a workshop full of failed shoe prototypes, to a special effects mind who understood torque and leverage better than most dancers understood choreography. Michael didn't discover some secret his own ankles were hiding. He commissioned an invention, waded through prototype after prototype, and then risked his own body on a live stage, trusting a mechanism buried under the floor to do its job at exactly the right half second. And then he did something no one before him had done. He took a piece of mechanical stagecraft and turned it into one of the most talked about, most imitated, most mythologized single seconds in music history. That's not the story of a man who broke the laws of gravity. It's the story of something rarer, a performer who understood that the right illusion, sold with total conviction, can become more real in people's memory than the truth ever could. And that's really the heart of every one of these stories. The magic was never in breaking the rules. It was in making millions of people believe the rules had been broken, while a small team of engineers and designers quietly did the actual work backstage, completely unseen and largely uncredited by the public for years. So next time someone tells you Michael Jackson literally defied gravity with his own strength, now you know the real mechanism behind the myth. He did something more impressive. He made an entire generation believe a patent was magic. If you learned something, drop a like and tell me in the comments. Did you know the lean was patented? Subscribe for more stories behind the legends. I'll see you in the next one.